Thank you for coming. We're just going to give everybody a minute or two to get in the room. Still a lot of people kind of filtering in. We'll give it one more minute. Okay, so I'm going to get started. If Luke or Che, you guys want to man the admit people from the waiting room button. So thank you guys so much for coming. For those of you who don't know who we are the Short Term Shop. My name's Avery Carl. I run the Short Term Shop and I am a real estate investor with 8 of which are short-term rentals. Sorry, I keep getting muted, I think. Guys, make sure that that you stay muted so we don't have to hit mute all. So my name's Avery Carl. I own 105 doors, 8 of which are short-term rentals. My husband Luke and I were able to get from 0 to 105 doors over the course of about 5 years. And we were able to do that by investing in short-term rentals really heavy towards the beginning of our career. Because they cash flow so much heavier than long-term rentals, we were able to scale much more quickly. So the Short-Term Shop operates in 10 markets, one of which is Orlando, and that is what we're going to discuss on this call today. We have a few other market-specific calls that are available on YouTube for you guys to watch, and we are working on getting them done for all 10 of our markets. So for those of you who don't know what we do, we are real estate agents. We sell houses in these 10 markets. We only work with short-term rental investors. We do not work with primary home buyers or sellers or long-term rental buyers or sellers. We only work with short-term rental investors. And if you guys use us as your buyer's agents in any of those 10 markets, we will teach you everything you need to know about investing in managing remotely your short-term rental. So we have a class called Management Monday. I'll let Luke, who teaches that class, introduce himself in just a second. So if you guys buy with us, then during your contract, while you're still under contract and through your inspection period, we will send you to Management Monday, where Luke will teach you everything you need to know, from setting up your Airbnb and VRBO listings to the automation tools that you'll need to streamline everything and make it a lot easier for you, all the way down to helping you source your local boots on the ground, cleaners, handymen, etc. So I will let Luke introduce himself really quick. You guys also can go to Management Monday as many times as you want. And I'll let Luke introduce himself really quick.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, we actually teach a lot of classes here at the shop. I'm in charge of education. And again, I also have 100 plus doors. I'm financially free at the age of 42. Life is wonderful. Co-created the Short-Term Shop with Avery in 2017. And we are now as of right now, the 12th biggest real estate team in the nation and the #1 real estate team that only deals with investments. And you can go to you can go to you can go to theshorttermshop.com/education to find out where those classes are. And also Management Monday. Yes, you do have to buy a house to get to Management Monday, but you'll automatically get a link to that if you buy a house, and it's about 3 hours long. Everything you need to know about managing a property from a distance. And yes, we are recommending you do this yourself, but we're here to teach you how to do that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. We wish you guys luck, and looking forward to talking about the Disney market.
Y'all, Luke is also a classic rock DJ on Sirius, so he totally slipped. with his
Yes,
link.
been doing that for a long time, and it just happens.
Serious.com/short-term rentals.
I don't even think about it. I just like, oh, boom, 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 you know.
Okay, guys. So we'll go ahead and get started. So our team in Orlando has a little presentation for you. We will go through that and then we'll open it up for questions. So I have Wade, Brant, and Holly in Orlando, we call it the Magic Shop, our wonderful Orlando team. I'm still laughing at Serious. So I'll let them introduce themselves and you guys have the floor now.
Awesome. Thank you, Avery. Definitely appreciate it. And welcome to everybody joining. We're very glad to have you here. So I'm just going to kick things off here. So when we're talking about the Orlando market, we're primarily referring to three main counties, specifically around short-term rentals. Okay, so when you have the Orlando City Center, and that's located in Orange County, then directly below that, you have Kissimmee, which is located in Osceola County. And then you have Davenport, which is located in Polk County. Now, why that matters is because your counties regulate your short-term rental restrictions, right? So Orlando is very unique in the sense that it's a hybrid market. So meaning that we're a big business with lots of people, and also we're a tourist destination. So over the last 30 years, our local governments have figured out ways to be able to allow big businesses and lots of people and tourism to coexist in the same market. So in order for that to work, we have some areas that have restrictions around short-term rentals and some that allow for them and are designed for that purpose. Okay, so Orange County in particular, for the most part, doesn't allow for short-term rentals. That's the city center of Orlando. So directly below that, you have Kissimmee and Davenport. They have a lot of specific areas that are designed for this purpose. They're called short-term rental overlays, and they're designed for short-term rentals. So beyond those counties, we also have our HOAs. Nearly every community out here has an HOA. Now, most investors that I talk to, they think, they hear HOA and they think of two things. Number one, they can be very expensive. They can kill your cash flow. And number two, there's the possibility that they could change those bylaws and really wreak havoc on your short-term rental investment. However, when we're dealing with short-term rentals in this market, the HOAs, they have something called a resort community. And these resort communities are designed for short-term rentals and vacation rentals. So Holly's going to go into further detail about that here just after me, but I'm going to just tell you a little bit about what that looks like. So in these resort communities, you have a couple of things. So one, you have community amenities. That might include things like a clubhouse with 24-hour concierge service, a security, gate entrance, shuttle service to and from the parks, Disney parks, Universal. They might be located on a golf course, things like that. So these are all additional amenities that you can have included in your listing for your property on Airbnb, VRBO, those types of platforms that you can showcase, that you can pass on to your guests, which will also help to improve your nightly rates. Number two, a lot of those HOAs include things like pest control, lawn care, exterior maintenance, things that you would normally have to pay for, your cable and internet. So a lot of times what you're looking at is a cost between about $350 to $550 on average or so. Some are higher, some are lower, but that's a typical monthly HOA fee. And as you can see, there's a lot of things included with that. So in addition to it, you can also add these community amenities to be able to further improve your cash flow. So that's an important consideration. So the top four considerations when you're dealing with the Orlando market outside of the counties is your proximity to the parks. So you want to be within a 10-mile span, typically within 30 minutes or less is most ideal. The number of bedrooms. So you want to get as many as you can. We have some that are up to 17 bedrooms out here. So it gets pretty big, but your number of bedrooms, your private pool. So that's having the ability to have your private pool and then also the resort amenities. That's largely going to be controlled by your price point, of course. If you're below about 400,000 or so at this very moment, that's going to be something where, you might want to go just with those resort amenities. It's going to be difficult to find something below that price point with a private pool. And then theming. So that's going to be the last one. That's THEME. So theme rooms or theming. And Wade is actually going to touch on that here. But Holly, I'm going to let you take over here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Holly. I will probably talk very fast. I get very excited about this market. I love it. It is the happiest place on earth, and magical and sunny and warm. So, and I get really excited about this. I started with Avery a few years back, I think when she was by herself, you know, doing this on her own, and she's grown huge, and it just like, I get so excited about all of it. So I apologize for going quickly and rambling a lot, but I wanted to talk to you about what a guest would look for when they're coming to our area. And what we've found from our research and talk to people is that guests come to this, they plan for quite a while, usually, to come to the area. It's not just a spur, sometimes it's a spur moment, but most of the times it's planned. And they stay on average from 5 to 7 days. 3 or 4 of those will probably be at the major parks. 1 or 2 days, we're only an hour and a half from each coast. So 1 day may be at the beach. And then the parents are exhausted, they are done, and the kids still have all this energy. So that's where it comes into play, that having these HOAs that have the amenities, or the homes that have a private pool, or you've converted the garage into a dance hall, a game room, or a movie theater, that then the kids can stay busy while the parents can sit on the couch and drink their wine while the kids are splashing around in the pool. Or if you have a great HOA communities, they can be at the tiki bar while the lifeguards are watching their kids go down the water slide, or they're in the lazy river on a raft, whichever. So that is a big drawing point for what the guests look for, because they, you know, as parents, you want to have that. But the theme part is a wow factor that I think is very necessary in our area, because people aren't coming here just to walk into like a residential home and I don't know, look at a city. They're here for the joy, the excitement. If a mom or dad is looking on their vacation on one of the websites and they see a themed room and their kids walking past the computer, Mom, I want to stay there. The mom can't, they don't have a choice anymore. That's where they're staying. The kid's not going to have that same reaction and push with a normal bedroom. So that's what the theming room is important. And not to scare people off with the cost. I mean, it's very, comes back to you, and you don't have to theme every room in the house, which Wade will get into also, but like parents, they don't care as long as it's nice, clean, like a 5-star regular resort. Like I touched on, the people like the magical, exciting feel. And a lot of the HOAs here provide that. As soon as you're going in the gate, you're doing like a check-in, you can have passes on your phones to get in the gate. And as soon as you walk in, you see people walking like to the amenities with their floaties on their shoulders, all kinds of things, you know, that excitement is there, that vibe, the same one that when you get off the plane in Orlando, it's different than anywhere else. There's just excitement on the walls. And you get that feeling. There are homes that we have here that are either in smaller HOAs and they're not like, there would be more like when I drive to go see these homes, it's like you're going down to a residential neighborhood. That doesn't mean that these won't flow also, but then I highly recommend making your home, as soon as they open that door, the wow factor in your home. Other questions that I get from people are, do townhomes or single family homes do better? And as a guest, in my opinion, when you're looking at these, you don't care what the walls are touching as much as what's inside the walls. So what they look, or what the walls look like, and how many they can sleep. That being said, townhomes are max, I think we have is 5 bedrooms. And so then if you want above that bedroom limit, then we get into the single family homes. And furnishings, people ask about furnishings here a lot. And I think as a guest, it needs, you know, just nice and something that is conducive to them. But things like dining room tables and stuff, they're not coming to Disney really to sit around the table. They want to be outside. So you're outside, your pools and your sitting areas outside. And again, the amenities is what brings the wow factor for that. And then mostly just being a responsible and very responsive host to your guest here is what's very important. I've talked to a lot of guests here that are with property managers and they don't get the attention that they need, and it's just kind of a downer on their trip. So what's very important to our guests here is that we're a great host and take care of, you know, just responsive in all ways and answer their questions. And your guests will be happy as long as you're happy and your house is happy and clean. And right now that's all I have, but I'm sure I skipped a lot. Brant, it's your turn. I mean, Wade, sorry.
What's up, everybody? So my name is Wade. So I'm going to be going into kind of the enemy method for our market. We get a lot of questions as to AirDNA data, nightly rates, things that actually pop. Our market, like Holly and Brant already previously mentioned, revolves essentially around our theming aspect. When I say theming, I truly mean properties that are designed and built around Airbnbs and Disney as a whole. This is a pretty mild property. I would consider it about a tier 2 home. You can see this is a 4-bed renting for about $148 in the middle of January, which is actually a pretty mild month for us. January is a dip month. We do not see our highest rates for any, here, let me take this out of the way, for any reason. But let me go to February here, and it's going to jump to 832. So getting back to our actual theming aspect, I'll say we have different tiers. A tier 1 home is just, hey, it's just a property. It's normal. It's average. There's nothing special about it. And then we get our tier 2 and tier 3 properties. This is a tier 3 home. It's essentially got the arcade interior like this. Our barrier to entry in our market is not going to be an appraisal gap. It is still extremely active here, but appraisal gaps like in the Smokies, Gatlinburg, Sevierville, they are going to be anywhere from $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 in some occasions. Whereas in our market, I think the largest appraisal gap I've written is $30,000. So it really just depends on the market that you're in. Not saying again that that's going to be a standard. Of course, it's going to depend on the home, but this is a great example of this themed property is renting for $495 in February, which is by no means our most active month, and it is actually booked all the way out to September. Another example is going to be this property. You'll see is renting for around $400 on this home. I'm actually in May here, May and June. This is less than half of what that other property was doing. So I highly encourage, this was actually February, had 2 weeks open previously. It's no longer booking. Here's another 7-bed. Also, just an average interior, nothing special. January, everything booked out until about April. And again, this is nothing special with a peak of around 300. And it's just got a modern interior that's nothing special. Actually, I'd say more contemporary. If you're not wanting to do a themed property in our market, the next best selling aspect is going to be a modern boho style, the light blues, greens, and yellows. So if you're not wanting to have a Disney interior, again, 272 on this in March. Let's go out to April again. That's going to jump to 600. And that's just on a 4-bed. So that's just a great example as to, hey, what is it I actually target around themes? A tier 2 or tier 3 is what I truly recommend in our market around Disney, Universal. Our last thing around theming is what is it we're going to theme? How often do I need to redo it? Things like that. My counter to that, and what I really like to say is, when was the last time you saw Star Wars go out of style? Star Wars has been around since the 70s. Kind of try and keep it around your core blockbuster movies. Toy Story, Lion King's been around forever. I love Star Wars. I firmly believe Marvel is going to be around for years to come. Average interior is also remodeled every 7 to 10 years anyways, but truly try and keep it around those blockbuster movies so you can really try and target as many people as possible of the 25 to 70 million people who are going to either Disney or Orlando as a whole. So that's pretty much it, all that I have around theming. If anyone has questions, Luke, also call me out if I did enemy method inaccurate. I know Cashflow Carl is on the call, so if I did it inaccurate, he will be calling me out for sure, because that is who he is.
But you crushed it. I can tell you did your homework. Great job. Fantastic job on the enemy method and pointing out that they were, in fact, and in my opinion, a lot of those properties you showed, as I'm sure you agree, were booked too far in advance. But again, I don't own anything in that market, but it seems to me like that's probably the case. Do you agree?
I do. So whenever it comes to occupancy, so Brant and Holly touched on communities earlier. You will see significantly higher nightly rates and occupancy around themed communities, or themed homes, excuse me, and also those homes that have those luxury resorts. But over anything, if you're either in a county zone or if you're in those residential communities, the interior of the property is truly what sells homes here. It really, really is. Homes do also not come on market that are themed. People who own them don't really want to sell them because they're doing pretty phenomenally. Someone did ask if we have contractors. Yes, we have several that we can refer to you. We're not property managers, so we don't really do the contracting experience ourselves. but we have worked with multiple that are actually previous Disney stagers and things in that capacity who worked for Disney. So we can refer them out for sure. And then really after that, that's kind of all I have. Luke, back to you. So.
Yeah, cool. So Brant, can you do me a favor and pull up a map of the area and prepare yourself to kind of give us a general overview, like from a map perspective of where we want to be looking to buy, and maybe Avery can take over and handle a couple of questions from the chat. I guess the question I get the most often is the theme room. You guys already nailed that. Great job there. So it's not necessary, but it does help. I guess to further ask another question on that, while Brant's preparing a map of where to buy, talk to me about the difference of buying a house that is already themed and not themed. Is it going to be more expensive to buy up front? Is it even worth it? Or should I maybe look for one that's not themed? Or, what are your thoughts on that?
So I can take that. Theming a property that is already themed. If you have a mountaintop property in the Smokies with a hot tub that's gorgeous, it's going to go well over list, and it's going to be the peak property that you can own. In our market, it's the same concept. If you have a home that is already themed and themed well, it is likely going to go for well over value because one, it's already done. I also see turnaround time. It really depends on the themer that you use. If you're just doing murals, like I mentioned, there are different tiers, a normal property versus one that's crazy. Like I presented earlier, that turnaround time really depends on the themer that you use. There are some that are booked out to August, and there are some that are available in 2 to 3 weeks. It really just depends on the one that you're most comfortable with using. Typically, the further out they're booked, the more high quality they are. I won't say any of them are bad because they all do phenomenal jobs, but it's really just choosing who you want. Really, I just say rent out the property, put in some murals while you're waiting, and then have someone come in and do some custom beds and things to that capacity. So you can at least go ahead and jump up your nightly rate as well as your occupancy, because a muralist can generally get in within a few weeks. So
wonderful. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm ready to share screen here. Awesome. Give you an idea of the area that I'm referring to. So, okay. Can everybody see this here? This screen, awesome.
You're good, Brand.
So you have the Orlando City Center here. Okay, then you have, here's the main parks that we're looking at. So all of the Disney parks here.
I'm sorry, can you zoom out, like way out really quick and then back into where we're at right now? There we go, beautiful.
Yeah, so Orlando City Center here. And then if you go down a little further, so there's Lake Buena Vista. That's a small city that's owned by Disney. Okay. So then down here, you have all the parks for Disney. So over in this pocket, this is where you're going to find the majority of the resort communities. So all the way down to about here, Champions Gate. And then there's a small section here called Solterra. Over here is Reunion. So Reunion is kind of a big area here. So, but this is where you're going to find the majority of your short-term rentals. And then there are some short-term rental overlays over here in on the east side as well. They're kind of scattered throughout this pocket, but you want to be within a 10-mile span. So a 10-mile span really goes to about here. So I'm going to draw a quick line here just to show you. So you're kind of looking, this area is where you're going to find those short-term rental overlays, as well as being within 10 miles of the parks, as you can see.
And as far as regulations are concerned, all these areas within that the line you just drew are totally hip. We're cool there. It's maybe just a business license and make sure we pay our taxes, etc. Where do we look? Where do we stand, guys, on taxes, permits, etc.?
Yeah, it's a great question. So beyond having, you need to have a lodging license and then a business tax receipt as well. But beyond that, there really isn't too much else. If you're in an older area of Kissimmee, for example, and even parts of Claremont, which is over here, you may need a conditional use permit. But beyond that, there really isn't too much restriction. You just need to make sure you're up to codes, basically.
And it's probably a situation where Airbnb and Vrbo are collecting the sales tax and occupancy tax, but maybe not necessarily the gross receipt tax. So that's something that we would do on our own on the side, or do My Lodge tax with that third tax. I'm just guessing on this, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, wonderful. So the major bulk of the short-term rental taxes in the area will be collected and paid by Airbnb and Vrbo. But like many short-term shop markets, there is a third tax, which is the gross receipt tax. And that's something that the host would need to collect and pay themselves, or could third party that through mylodgetax.com, which we totally recommend them in a market such as this. Avery, I'll turn it back over to you. Tell them what they've won.
Okay, awesome. So we will go ahead and open it up for questions. Guys, you hit the time perfect. We did just about 30 minutes of presentation. So we have about 30 minutes left for Q&A. And so guys, when you're asking questions, if you can go to the bottom of your Zoom screen, click reactions, and then use the hand raise function. We want to talk to you face to face. If you can't, then go ahead and use the chat, but only if you can't, because trying to field questions using our voices and then trying to get to the chat too can be a little bit overwhelming. So we'll get everybody who has their hands raised first and then hit the chat, because I know some of you have called in and maybe you're at work or something, so you can't actually talk. So we'll go ahead and start with Naveen.
Hey guys, hey Wade. Quick question. Let's say we pick in Storybrooke South, for an example, as a community, or Emerald Resort. If there are two properties up for sale, one is themed and the other one is not, do you see a significant price up on the one that is themed versus the one that is not, just if at all a property shows up like that?
I can take that. So yes, answer is yes. We just had two properties in Stony Brook South, actually, that just listed north of 800, actually, for 830 and 850. I can certify that both those properties, I know the agents for those homes, or agent specifically, both of those properties went over 800. The reason why is because when a seller took 3 to 6 months to put in that theme, especially when it's of the caliber that they did on those homes, it can take a while, and it's usually anywhere. Someone asked earlier what it cost. It can take anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 for a mild, small murals, artwork, accents for a room, or it can be anywhere from $15,000 to $35,000, depending on if you're doing a bowling alley or a flight simulator or crazy in-depth AT-AT walker that is 14 feet tall, which is something I have seen on previous homes as well. So those homes that are themed, because they're already done and they do take time to put in, I do recommend running numbers on those homes, but they do significantly go over purchase price a lot of the time. So.
Got it. And just one more quick question while I have you up there. I do know that there is a significant amount of new properties that are being built by Disney itself within the vicinity, and they have their own resorts. How do we stand up with that competition that's coming up?
So I've already done a little bit of research into that. One thing I can say is the ratio to number of homes available versus the ones that are actually themed is actually decreasing. So they're actually becoming more scarce, if that makes sense. So I'm not too worried. Also, where they're building is a little further away. I heard it was by Disney, but I think Emerald Island is still actually closer in terms of drive time. But again, I'm not too worried. Those homes are not going to be themed. They're just going to be standard properties. A home that is themed, run numbers on it. I'm not too worried. So,
got it. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, you're next.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for a great presentation. I was just trying to get numbers in place. If you assume a not designed home at all, to get it to tier 1, 2, and 3, what would you say the kind of cash necessary is?
Do you want me to take that again? I don't know if Brant and Holly.
It also depends on the size of the home, though. If you're talking townhomes versus, you know, a 4-bedroom townhome versus a 12-bedroom.
Yeah, let's talk like 3-4, which is the range that, you know, you want to start at.
3-4 bedrooms?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it also depends on if you want to do just a couple kids rooms, or if you want to do a full, and the reason I say that is because like Wade was saying, lately we've had some that are listed that are fully blown out. Like you walk in the hallway and it looks like you're walking down into the Starship. But for a regular, like he was saying, if you're looking at around 5,000 per like bedroom for the simple ones, you could do like 2 bedrooms would get you around the 10,000. If you wanted to make one of them extreme with slides and things like that, then I would up the budget. And then I think that besides the bedrooms, it's very, very important, in my opinion, to theme a garage.
Okay.
And that of course can be double, triple the price. And besides their time limits being different, the designers, they also have quite a bit of different prices, but have them show you their work and some of their referrals and their Facebook pages, research them. But most of them, like Wade was saying, our market has, our resources have expanded quite a bit with everybody that got laid off by Disney. These folks that have been with the Disney and the other major parks in the area for a long time have taken their skill sets, and now we get to access those. And it's really awesome what they've come up with.
Great. Thank you so much.
So theme garage, what are we theming? Is that to hang out in the garage? Are we playing cornhole out there, or what's going on? I love the garage, but
I don't think cornhole is really exciting to kids, sorry, or to anybody that plays cornhole. But I've seen them with dance studios where it's got the disco ball, it's got the karaoke machine, it's got all of that. Yep. And there's some movie theaters, like he's saying, movie theaters, gaming rooms. I'll try to pull up one. Do you have that Tron one, Wade?
And is the
I don't have
garage,
the Tron one, but I know what you're talking about.
Are we putting HVAC in the garage then, or?
They're called splits in this area. I don't know if you have them in other. They're called splits. They can do AC and heat. Most garages already have.
Oh, there you go. Yep, mini split. Yep, cool.
Yes, and most of them are already in there, even if they are a very simple garage. Like they didn't even coat the floor. They just threw some games in there. They still have the split so that the garage is usable.
Very common in Florida in general. As a matter of fact, our Florida house, we've got a mini split in the garage and no games at all. We don't even rent it. We live in it most of the time, but totally cool. I never even would have considered something like that.
And on the garages, you can vary it too between that. I've seen some that you can still like say they're nice, but you can still see the garage door. And then there's other ones where the interior of the garage door is completely walled off and insulated. And it's just like a whole nother dimension in there. You would
Brilliant. Brilliant. A lot of our markets, short-term rental markets in general, just don't really have garages because you're on vacation. Why do you need a garage? So it's really cool to see what they've done with that down there. I do have another question along those same lines, and you guys are not going to like this one because, again, it's outside of the scope here. I just want to remind everybody that, at the shop, we are, I'm not, but the folks on this call are real estate agents, so it is not necessarily our job to tell you what it's worth, but let me throw that scenario we were just talking about at you. A 4-bedroom house, not even the same, like stratosphere, but like where are we as far as purchase price versus gross income? If you can give me a huge ballpark on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the bulk of our properties, you can really start here as low as 250,000. That might change pretty soon, but 250,000 typically buys you about a 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse, usually in one of these resort communities. And the cash flow on that, as far as the average nightly rate, that sort of thing, you might be able to do, maybe 120 to 220, somewhere in that range, depending on the situation. Now you can go all the way up to, $3 million properties here in Reunion, 17 bedrooms as well. So you'll find those here as well. Usually what we want to do is shoot for a single family residence detached, 5+ bedrooms with a pool is a great place to start because that's where you're going to see some of your best returns. And then we also see another price point between 8 and 10 bedrooms tend to do very well because there's, different groups at that point that you can cater to in the sense that you can have, small business that comes in, you can have a larger group of friends. There's just there's a lot of different things you can do when you have those extra bedrooms here, as you'll see.
And can I add to that? I totally skipped over this, and what I wanted to say earlier was that the number of bedrooms here, in my opinion, is very important. I like, and again, whatever works for everybody, but I like to start a minimum of 4 bedrooms and 3 baths. And the reason why I say that is, in that situation, you probably have 2 master bedrooms. So you can market to 2 families at least. So a mom and a dad would have a suite, a mom and a dad would have a suite. And then the other kids could split up the bedrooms with the bunk beds and share the bathroom. And then when you get into more bedrooms, you're of course catering to more families. You can market to that. And like I was saying, when people plan ahead, they're usually bringing either multi-generation, you know, grandma and everybody, or a group of friends are getting together to bring all their kids to Disney type situation. If 16 people were to rent hotels here, be it Disney or anywhere else, they're going to have to get at least 4 bedrooms for that number of people. I mean, at least 4 hotel rooms for that number of people. You could be charging, and this, I'm just throwing this out there, you could be charging $1,000 a night. And for them, that's $100 a person. And they're saving money because they're getting to use your kitchen. They're not buying 4 hotel rooms. They're not buying Disney food, which breakfast alone could cost a couple $100 for that many people. And so they're saving money while you're making money. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Average purchase price for a 5-bedroom house with a pool and maybe a light theme. Just like, you know, I mean, give me a $200,000 spectrum of what that costs or whatever that may be.
Yeah, so typically out here, they started about 500,000 in a resort community, you know, built within the last 10 years or so, give or take. For a 5-bedroom with a pool, you're looking at about 500,000. You know, if you're looking at a townhouse with a pool, 4 to 5 bedrooms, between 400 to 500,000. That's what you're typically looking at.
Is it common to see them go up to 6, 7, 800,000, or are they really just kind of generally in that, you know, 5 to 6 area?
For a townhome?
For a single family.
Single family, that's pretty typical. You will find exceptions, especially in Reunion, because there's so many different floor plans and different, you know, elevations and that sort of thing. But in general, we're dealing with spec homes, so their prices are pretty consistent across the board.
And this 500, let's say $550,000 5-bedroom, a gross income on that, and an occupancy, average occupancy per year on that. Again, giant, massive ballpark numbers on these guys, if you could.
Yeah, say 70 to 90,000, somewhere between there. Wade, would you say that's pretty accurate? You say for a 5 to 6 bedroom, single family detached?
I'd say that's pretty spot on, but I've seen themed 5 beds do north of 140.
North of 140. Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So that's a huge difference. Okay. So, and either way, the low end of those numbers, they work for me personally. I'm happy with 70 to 80 or with the possibility of 90 on a 550-ish house. Absolutely. And of course, the fact that we're cutting out the property manager doesn't hurt either. Wow. Yeah, cool. I mean, I'm floored. I guess my last question might take a little bit of digging. Any idea how many of these properties are on market right now? Feel free to search the MLS. You already have this number, Wade, yes?
I'm a numbers statistic freak for anyone who ever asked. Our market has decreased significantly since November, but we are still averaging many more properties on average across the board than a lot of the other markets that only have about 2,000 to 4,000 homes available. We traditionally see between 300 and 600 properties on market in these resort style communities across the board, between condo to the $4 million crazy properties. On average, though, you're probably going to be balancing between 50 and 100 homes, depending on your search at any given point, between inside a community and or just a county designated zone. So that's pretty much what our market revolves around.
So in other words, if I were to narrow down my search to say something north of 400,000 and, you know, a single family only, that kind of thing, couple of narrowed down, be more like 40 or 50 homes at a time. And you're saying that has slowed down, but Wade, talk to me about the fact that it is slow season. Like we're seeing fewer listings in all markets nationwide right now because of it. You know, frankly, it's just winter time. It's after Christmas, and we do expect that to change a bit here in the next month or possibly 5 to 6 weeks. Are you expecting that as well?
Yes.
Again, sorry, I should mention we're filming this right in the middle of January. If anybody happens to catch this later on.
So you're correct. We do tend to bounce back north of that 500 right around March. If you ever were to go back. Now we have been, just because the market has been getting more and more and more active for the last 5 years, our inventory is just slowly shrinking and expanding and shrinking every single year. But yes, right around March, we start to see that come back. It's pretty common. Just when it comes back, I'm excited for it. I will say rate hikes, though, are on the way. So people are still trying to get ahead of that for the second home loan. It's another thing that I've kind of noticed. People are more determined to get a property right now. But really, if the numbers make sense, I don't care what time of year it is or what else is available. I buy properties or numbers work. So.
Hey, Wade, can you touch on something really quick regarding, we were actually talking about this before the call, what people are seeing on AirDNA and why you don't like AirDNA in Orlando or in Kissimmee and Davenport?
So I preach on this. Anyone who's talked to me, by the way, knows that I do not like AirDNA. AirDNA takes in an average of basically everything within about either a region or a 1 mile radius. You can pay for maybe a little bit more of an updated service if you want to, but I push enemy method like I showed earlier, because that enemy method is going to show you the properties that are themed, or really the ones that you're really driving to get to. Those homes will have higher occupancies and nightly rates than what 90% of the other market has. I have seen quite a few homes come on market, and anyone who has tried to buy a home here will recognize a lot of homes that were built in the last 5-10 years. The furniture looks like it was from the 90s, despite it being nearly a brand new house. So when it comes to an average home here, they are not themed. And so when you're taking average numbers with AirDNA, they do not reflect what our true numbers can be, which is why I push that enemy method so much. So.
Okay, another question that I get a lot on our new client calls, which, guys, if you are not a client and you do want to buy a house with us, go to www.stsconsultation.com. Luke will put that link in the chat. And we have several new client consultation calls a week that you can hop on to become a client to buy with us in any of our markets. But a question that I get a lot is, how do you feel about saturation in the market?
And also, one more on top of that, what is saturation in your market, and how do you feel about it?
I was actually listening to Rick Jarman this morning. I miss him, but there's always room for, what he said was there's always room for one more. It's the cream of the crop, right? Or the cream rises to the top. Are you going to be the cream? And I think with the information that Wade and Brand provided it, and that you'll get from Luke's class and everybody that you get to be with here on the Facebook, you will be the cream, and you'll be at the top, and you'll be in those numbers that are up. I mean, I don't believe there's not going to be saturation. Plus we're growing so huge down here, and it's always sunny. People want to be here. I know Wade has more numbers on that, but that's my thought, is everybody's going to be great.
I want to point something out too. So when we're talking about all of the new construction that's down here, and how, there's an influx of people that just want to move to Florida in general. Orlando tends to be a cheaper market than some surrounding areas as a place to live. One thing that's really important to understand is, as I was kind of alluding to this before, big business, we also have our primary residence, and we figured out how to make both of those work in our market very well for a very long time. So it's important to understand that some of the HOAs, they strictly do not allow for short-term rentals at all. And there's some even new development. And then there's some that are designed for this purpose. You will also have some areas that just don't have regulations either way. But it's important to understand that as we're growing and we're expanding, they're keeping all of these things in mind. And when you look through the actual overlays and you look through all of the codes, they'll actually mention on there that as they're doing these new development projects and they're handing out these licenses and that sort of thing for lodging, if they want to keep the tourism within a relatively short distance of the parks. It's very clear about that in their codes. So this isn't something where, as they start to expand 30 miles outside of the city, or, away from the parks, that we're going to run into this issue where everyone's just jumping on short-term rentals. So it's something to keep in mind there as well, as we're talking about saturation.
Awesome. Crystal, past client, it's your turn.
Thanks. If we are looking to self-manage to maximize cash flow, do we steer clear from the resorts where amenities aren't available, if on-site management is not used, like Reunion?
I take that. So question was property management for self owners, correct, Crystal?
I think she wants to know where are there any areas to stay away from if she does plan to manage it herself?
Yeah,
like
so
maybe that have like a requirement to use a certain property manager or something like that.
So I love that question. The reason why is because, yes, there are very few communities as well as condo hotels, which will have a stipulation where they require property management in order to actually own the home and use the community clubhouse. So in those HOAs where they require property management, there's only about 3 of them. And for the most part, they'll draw your eye, specifically Encore, which I believe someone commented it about in the chat earlier. Encore, you can still buy the home, but your guest will not have access to the clubhouse unless you use their in-house management company that they're partnered with. And they actually have 2. So yes, there are HOAs that do have a stipulation for self-management, but it's very uncommon. We have north of 1,000 subdivisions here, and I'm talking about 3. So it's not common here to any capacity. It's just they tend to be larger and newer and more grand. So they do draw more eyes to it, but there's still plenty of other opportunities in other communities that still have those resort amenities. So it is by no means extremely common. It is actually very uncommon to have that. So.
And if if you use the shop to buy your property, we are completely set up to have the capacity and the capability to, narrow those properties down and figure that's exactly what we specialize in here at the shop. So you're in good hands. Avery?
All right. So we have time for probably 3 more questions. Julius, you're next.
So Mike, I got a 2-part question here. The first part is setting the pricing. This is probably for Wade. Setting prices from tier 2 and tier 3. How are we determining the pricing for the tier 2 and tier 3 homes?
Tier 3 is a lot more.
Yep.
So tier 2, it really depends on how far you want to go. So, I mean, there are some garages that you can do. You can just throw a air hockey table in there for maybe $1,000 and it can be considered a themed garage. However, when you're paying a contractor to come in and hand paint a 14-foot tall AT-AT walker, I say that because it's starting to be a thing. I love them. It takes them about 3 weeks to make it by hand with an experienced carpenter. So for that room that I can send you a photo if anyone ever is interested in this, it took $33,000 for a 14-foot tall AT-AT walker that has 2 bunk beds on either side, and it's enormous. It's amazing. But then just traditional bunk beds, I've been quoted around $25,000 for 2 bunk beds that are themed like a castle, 25, 30. It really just depends on how far you want to go. You don't need to do every single room in the house. Again, Holly emphasized this earlier. Focus on kids' rooms. Kids' rooms are really where it's at. I have had buyers, I hope I'm not shouting anyone out who's been with homes with me here, but I've had buyers with kids where their kids will not want to leave the rooms because of the one themed room that's around Frozen or Moana or something else. And they will cry because they love the room so much. You don't need a massive themed home. There are some that are here, but just having 1 or 2 rooms traditionally is enough to really ramp up that revenue. So I hope that helps.
Yep. Awesome. I appreciate it. And then just last question there. So you buy the home, you're set up through you guys out here. What are the requirements that we need to get up and running as far as licensing and those different things with the city, county, and then the community?
I'll let Brant take that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically just an application that you fill out. It's a very quick process, usually a week or less turnaround period for that. After you get your lodging license from filling out your application, you get approved for it. And then you get your business tax receipt. And then from there, you're pretty much good to go. Just get connected with a great CPA. And that's about it.
it's a very simple process, Julius, and you'll learn more about this, of course, in Management Monday. You know, if you purchase a property, we're going to teach you all about all that stuff. So no worries. In this particular market, it is a very easy process. Some paperwork, maybe a couple of weeks of you know, following up, and pretty much all you need. Avery, did we have another one? Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll grab another one. I was just hitting somebody back in the chat really fast. Brendan.
Hey guys, I had a question concerned about just general upkeep and maintenance with these larger houses. So in other markets such as the Smokies, obviously a similar price point, similar gross numbers, the cabin's half the size as these places. Are you seeing the CapEx and repairs are twice as much, or not necessarily?
Brant, you want to take that one?
Yeah, just from my experience, I haven't really seen that that's been the case. You know, of course, if you're going to replace flooring and that sort of thing, you're going to have to account for the square footage. If you have a larger roof area, then you're going to have to account for that. What you will find is if you're in a typical 8-bedroom spec home in one of these resort communities, they usually have multiple HVAC units, so you will have to account for that. However, a lot of those things can be compensated for just by doing the theming and really setting yourself apart. Being a part of that, I know Wade doesn't like it as much, but the 75th percentile, as far as AirDNA is concerned, if you were to use those numbers, that's what we want to shoot for. Luke, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that's ultimately what we're looking for.
Absolutely. And yeah, I generally find that my properties hit just a little higher than 75. And then furthermore, go a little bit more on Brendan's question. As far as like wear and tear is concerned, I mean, I don't own anything in the 8-bedroom area, but I've got a few 3,000 square foot plus. And I really don't, and I've got a 3,000 in the mountains and a 3,000 on the beach. They're basically the exact same house in different markets, and I don't really notice much wear and tear difference. I guess the biggest thing for me on those two properties is the fact that my beach house, which would be similar to these are not on the beach, but they are in Florida. There's paint involved. So in the Smokies, it's a lot of tongue and groove. And that generally kind of holds up over the years and doesn't require much maintenance. If there is paint involved, I personally would probably plan to at least redo some of the rooms every maybe 2 to 3 seasons. I'll go in there and take a look after a full season because, again, Florida properties tend to slow down a little bit for at least a month or 2 at a time. I'll go cruise it. Okay. My staircase, typically the paint on the staircase gets a little beat up from luggage, suitcases, etc. I plan to have repainted every season. But as far as the bedrooms and the living areas, it's usually about a 3-season situation. And it also depends whether you use an eggshell or semi-gloss. Semi-gloss lasts longer, but you can't touch it up, you know, that kind of thing. But
I have had people ask about, you know, like there's 20 people in the home, how much damage is, you know, that sounds like a lot. Typically, they're not your partiers, they're the families. And from my experience, and when I've actually even walked into these homes, when I know that there's like 16 people in there, when you travel with other people, you don't want them to know what you really live like at home. Or you're with grandma, and yes, grandma, we always use a coaster underneath the glass. We always eat outside. I walked into this house, there were at least 9 kids, and all the shoes were lined up against the door, you know, up against the wall. They usually act better when they're when they're traveling with either multi-generations or multi-families, because they don't want people to know how slobbish or disrespectful they are to their own home. So a lot of these homes we tour, like the second they come on the market, if we can get in them and we're looking at them, and they look great. I mean, somebody didn't just throw paint on so that they could sell it. They've been occupying 16 to 20 some odd people, and they still look good. So I don't see a lot of damage right now.
I appreciate the input, guys. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, last one, we will go Warren, and then we'll let you guys get back to your day. Or I guess a lot of you aren't at work, but because it's a holiday. There are no holidays in real estate. So I always, when we get to a holiday, I'm like, oh,
or every day's a holiday. Could be either one.
Hey,
okay,
thank
Warren,
you.
Hey, thank you. I had a two-part question. Can you do the 10% down loans in that market? Is that normal? And specifically because like in the Emerald Coast, I know a lot of them is the non-warrantable versus warrantable. So just want to ask about that on the financing side and the warrantable versus non-warrantable.
Yeah, so warrantable versus non-warrantable would only be condos. So yeah, any single family home, as long as you've got the day job to back it up, basically, you probably would qualify for a second home. Again, talk to your loan officer on that topic, but we don't see any issues with that. If you're asking specifically because of the market, no problem there. Again, unless you're getting into a condo, which would be any market.
Well said. Okay, we have time for one more. That was a quick one. So Mike, you're next.
Hey guys, like many on this call, I'm assuming I'm a owner in the Smokies and love that market. But the prices have exploded there over the past year for like the $300,000 to $400,000 price range, which is kind of where I'm at. So this market looks like maybe the next best thing. In the Smokies, I know that there's not really a risk of any changes in the laws for short terms because it's just built into that market. These counties where there are laws for allowing short terms, is there any risk of those changing to disallow a short term that may be purchased?
No, not that we've seen. And one big reason for that is because of the amount of time that this, because we have big business here and we also have our primary residence with our tourism. Those two things drive our economy. That is what makes it work here. So our government is fully on board with this, and it's something that's written into our codes as well and our zoning. We don't anticipate that any of that will change. Now, these resort communities are so different from a basic primary residential type of community because of the things that are there and also the types of developments that are there. They don't necessarily fit within the same structure of standard primary residential codes. So they're very different in that sense, and they wouldn't translate well or work well as just primary residence. So for that reason, I can't imagine that being the case.
Okay, thank you.
And that was going to be the last question, but then I noticed Paul's awesome tie-dye Led Zeppelin shirt that I wanted to call attention to. It's really cool. So Paul, do you have a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm really familiar with that area. Been going down there since I've been a little kid. I have an uncle that lives in the Highlands golf course area. I dealt with a realtor years back, and his main focus was, if you're going to buy a home in this area, make sure you buy one on the outskirts of the developments. I mean, there could be 800 houses in these developments. And his concern was the pool area in the back of the home having a lot of privacy. Is that a concern that you would choose a home like that over one that's in the middle of the development where you have no privacy off the back of the house?
I mean, right now, getting a home in a community is awesome anywhere. I mean, I wouldn't pass up on one because your guest, and people also ask about like how close to the amenities they are. But I think when a guest is looking to book it, they're not counting how many feet away they are from something or what they're in their backyard. There's not a lot of like nude bathing going on around here. So they, you and your kids are all playing in the backyard, and the next door neighbors, their kids are all playing in the backyard too. You know, I mean, and they're usually all screened in. But yeah, right now, if you can, I wouldn't not get one because it wasn't toward the edge, the back of the property. There are some that have nice greenways and stuff in between them. And if you see one of those, or they're like at the curve of a cul-de-sac and they do have that privacy, then I do jump all over that, but it doesn't have to be, in my opinion.
Thank you very much.
I have a question about your shirt. Is that a reprint or is that an original 75 tour shirt? Because I will buy it from you.
It's a reprint. You probably could find them on Amazon,
okay.
But I have a lot of original Who ones and some original Zeppelin ones.
Nice. Awesome.
Paul rules.
So it has been exactly an hour. I want to be respectful of y'all's time. Thank you so much for coming. If you are a client, just reach out to info@theshorttermshop.com if you've not been connected with one of our Orlando agents yet and you would like to be. If you are not a client, head over to stsconsultation.com. We're going to open up a few slots for this week because it's not showing any. We're booked out basically until February 23rd. So we're going to open up a few more slots for this week's calls sometime over the next hour. So if you're not a client, go check there and we'll get you in this week and get you set up with the Orlando team. Thank you guys so much for coming.